Hello, hello. Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth Raven Lewis Bright Raven. I'm your host, Lewis Bright Raven, 33-year veteran of comic science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. It is Monday, November 17th, 2025. That means it's time for Monday Manga. And we've been discussing the series KAIJU 8. And we're going to review volumes 6 and 7 this evening. So let's get started. KAIJU number 8, volume 6 and 7 for $9.99 each. Publisher Shonen Jump Viz Media. Creator Naoya Matsumoto. U.S. translation by David Evelyn. Art touch-up and lettering for English edition by Brandon Bovia. Designed by Jimmy Kressler. Editor Carla Clark. Genre Kaiju Super Battle Science Fiction. Released originally April 11th, 2023 and July 11th, 2023. What it's about. Kafka has encountered Kaiju number 9, Kafka being the lead character, Kaiju number 8. But he finds himself unable to transform into his Kaiju self. Luckily, Kokoro comes to the rescue and goes head-to-head against K9. Meanwhile, the Kaiju number 9 that had appeared before Captain Rumi undergoes an evolution during battle. Will Kafka's faith in his companions pay off? Why has his Kaiju form resisted him, leaving him in a human form? Is it really a battle of wills between himself and the monster within? And if so, can he win? What did I think? The pacing of this volume, volume 6, is breakneck speed and doesn't let up. This is another action-packed, nail-biting volume of some high-adrenaline Kaiju combat. Kokoro gets a good amount of focus time in this issue or volume, and more opportunity to shine in terms of fighting, which we haven't seen much of since volume 3, so it's nice to revisit her and see how much her skill set has grown in the last few volumes. But because the focus is mostly on Kokoro, fans of some of the other side characters are going to likely be disappointed because they're pretty much left out of this volume. Matsumoto ends on cliffhanger once again, which is becoming a bit of a hallmark in the series because, well, it's an important cliffhanger as Kokoro's father, he dies. Spoiler there, but anyway. You're going to want to race to the next volume to see what the closure is on this chapter for chapter 7. So that having been said, it's also basically one long fight sequence between Kokoro and K9 with little character emotional story development save for some brief Shinomiya backstory, which is her father. And K9 is fast becoming, oh, you thought you defeated me? Think again, suckers. Recurring antagonist type character who's becoming annoying and uninteresting as a foil for our heroes. A smart kaiju would let his opponents think they've defeated him and then mastermind from behind the scenes, making other kaiju with specific abilities to counter the hero's abilities instead of, oh, everything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you, which is pretty much what's going on in this issue or this volume. And of course, because the stakes are so high, the Director General Isao Shinomiya, which is Kokoro's father, has to saddle up and engage against K9. And of course, K9 plays it out so that he expends all of his energy, and the Kaiju absorbs the Kaiju number power that Isao uses, and he becomes trapped inside K9, leaving the heroes to battle K9 while trying to save the soul of Kokoro's father. And it also gives K9 all of the knowledge of the Director General of the Defense Force and the membership and their weaknesses and strengths and so on. Now, I'm all for raising the stakes of the game, so to speak. But this is like where you should be at the end game of the story, right? We aren't even halfway through this series, so I'm kind of like, what's going to go on next? Then comes Volume 7. Japan Defense Force is reeling from the loss of their high-ranking leader, Shinomiya. And they keep having to fight Kaiju number 9. Kafka finds himself with a piece of on the back of his hand that will not untransform from his kaiju self. In the bowels of the Defense Force labs, a remnant of Kaiju number 10 awakens and makes a deal with Vice Captain Hoshina that Hoshina hopes will turn the tide against K9. But within the Defense Force, the scientists think they have located a candidate who is compatible to use some of the Force's weapons that they've created using remnants of Kaijus. But in order to train them, to learn how to use them, it'll either result in a better soldier or the soldier's death. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You either learn it or it kills you while you try to learn it. Not a good thing. Now, if there's one thing that Kaiju number 8 is a series is great at doing, it's creating adrenaline rushes. For the past couple of volumes, we've seen Kafka and the Defense Force dealing with Kaiju number 9. And as we see in the 7th volume, this monster doesn't just showcase terrifying strength, it's smart as hell too. And now the enemy may just have the upper hand. The battle between Kaiju number 9 and Aisao Shinomiya ends in tragedy, of course, with the monster merging with the Director General and absorbing him into its body. And it forces Kafka, Kero, and Narumi to go all in an attempt to save him. Arms are sliced off, faces are punched, fire and lasers spew all across the battlegrounds. But Kaiju number 9 gets away, but not without offering a good warning next time I make a move and mark the start of the Kaiju era. What follows then is a massive grieving process. Kero understandably doesn't have an inner to attend her father's funeral, and the rest of the Defense Force feels just as defeated. However, there is a fire burning inside them, one that outright refuses to allow them to give up. The urge to grow stronger and more skilled fills Kakuro's belly, and she decides to become the soldier that would make her father proud. But to what extent is she going to go to get there? We'll have to wait and see. Kakuro's dealing with her father's demise is a simple scene, one that we've seen played out many times and shown in manga and in comics in general. However, there is something about the look in her eyes as it's being depicted as she utters, "I want to become stronger," that hits different. There's emotional pain and anger flowing through her irises. The tears drip down her face. And in this particular moment, we do see a character that's just about to start her journey towards greatness. I don't know if you guys can hear the sirens in the background outside, but there are some going on. Now, countering this is the whole situation with Kafka. Once again, worrying if his kaiju side will eventually win out and he'll become just a monster, and also the evolution of the relationship between the Defense Force and the captured K-10, who basically explains that he's K9's prototype, but he wants to prove he's still better than anything K9 will develop after him. This once again shows that Matsumoto is playing the same tropes he's played already in the series, and between that and the kind of it wasn't as redundant in these volumes as the previous volume last week, where it was the same fight over and over and over and over. But it kind of, there's things that can be edited out. There's things that can be done a little bit tighter and cleaner, I think, at times. Now, what do I think of this volume? In some ways, Volume 7 acts like a short breather while raising the tensions for the characters, both emotionally and putting them at risk. Since whoever the scientists decide to give the new Kaiju's weapons to are going to run the risk of suicide, trying to learn how to control the new armor or weaponry. The threat of K9's return looming over them, and the metaphorical Damocles sword of the plot, pushes these characters onward. Now, personally, I would have preferred the Director General, Shinomiya, not to have been sacrificed so early. I think it was too soon in the storyline, but I do get why the author did it. But doing so, he shifts the focal tone away from Kafka and hands the lead role to Kakuro, in my opinion. And the story is now more about her than it is about Kafka, because at this point, the audience is far more invested in her than they are in him. Do I even care if Kafka lives through this? I mean, every time I turn around, he's failing. After all the failures he's experienced, does he even deserve anything more than a horrible death as the kaiju side of him takes over and the others would inevitably have to kill the monster that's left? At this point in the story, I'm not so sure that he really has a whole lot to offer, and it's more about Kokoro. Now, I don't want to speculate where the story's going to go from here. I know what I would do if I were writing the story, but it wouldn't take me another 8 volumes to do it. So I know that's not what Matsumoto is planning, because we got another 7, 8 issues to read. I just hope that I don't get bored with whatever he does do. I'm going to give this one a 4 stars for volume 6 and 3 stars for volume 7, which is, a little bit better than last week. Last week it was a 3.5 and a 3, so they did improve from last week's volume 4 and 5. So it is on the upswing, and hopefully, hold on a second. Okay. Hopefully, we'll just see more improvement as the series goes on. And there's Kaiju number 9 against Shinomiya. I kind of like the face of the Kaiju number 9. The head, it's got that weird long face with the teeth, and then that weird like saucer-like cup on the forehead there. It makes me think of Christopher Daniels, the wrestler who plays a character named Curry Man, where he wears a cup of curry on top of his head as he wrestles. But it's fake curry, of course. It's not the real thing. There's some good design going on here with the lettering and the different action sequences. The way they do these multiple circle eyes with the little dots is becoming more and more common. It's interesting that they do it, but at the same time, and he's still thinking about his daughter Kokoro at this point, and he's saying, "I got to eliminate this creature so that my daughter can live and doesn't have to worry about it," type thing. But he goes through all of that. And he does a pretty good job of tearing up Kaiju number 9, as you can see there. Not much left of him, just the core there. And he's telling him, no, Kafka's like, you gotta leave, you gotta get out of there, type thing. Because he calls number 2 the weapons that are on Shinomiya's body as weapons. He says, come on back and rejoin the kaiju. And that's when he gets absorbed. So there's that issue, volume number 6. And again, here's volume 7. There's a couple of new type characters that are getting involved. More battle with Kaiju 8 and the others against number 9. Giant Kaiju ants. Even though there's like a bunch of smaller, humans fighting them and stuff. So it's it's got some good stuff in here overall. I'm enjoying it so far. And then here's number 10, trapped like a little the brain in the container, which we've seen that motif several times in kaiju TV and movies. So it's not like that's anything particularly unique. But overall, pretty decent stuff. Okay. So what do we have going on for the rest of the week moving forward? Well, next week, for the next Monday episode, we will have our continuation of Kaiju number 8 with volumes 8 and 9. For the rest of the week, tomorrow, Tuesday, we'll have crowdfunding industry talk at 8 p.m. I'll give some reveals of some new books that were come in from crowdfunding, as well as some other talk about our campaigns that are going around and some other industry news as well. Thursday is a review night special edition at 8 o'clock instead of our usual 9 o'clock time slot, because it's going to be an extra long edition. We didn't get to really do an episode last week. We kind of did a short version on Saturday to try and make up for it, but we're way behind, so we're going to do about 20 title reviews, 20 book reviews or so on Thursday. And then Friday night this week, we're going to do the film Escanaba in the Moonlight. Again, that's at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can see that film on Tubi.com as well if you want to watch it beforehand. Okay, so that's what we're looking at this week. Okay, there we go. Kind of a crazy. I don't know why. There we go. That's better. I'm trying to get the right frame here. But that is this week. And so if you want to reach out to me on social media, you can contact me at Lewis.BrightRaven on Facebook, at Twitter X, at LewisBrightRaven2. You can find my artwork at deviantart.com/BrightRaven. And there'll be some other places you can find my artworks, hopefully shortly. We're going to have a whole new page here about how to reach it. Not just me, but my co-hosts when they're on. But you've been watching both the Raven Lewis Bright Raven exclusively on YouTube. Email quothravenlbr72@gmail.com. And if I don't get back to you, try lewisbrightraven@yahoo.com. And I think that's all for tonight, folks. So I'm going to wish you well. And we'll see you guys tomorrow night at 8 p.m. for crowdfunding talk. Until then, see you next time. Quoth the Raven, nevermore.